All right, if you're prepping for competitive exams, you know that some topics just keep showing up. And today, we're diving deep into one of the most crucial ones for the Indian economy, the rural MSME sector. This is a big one, so let's get right into it. And to really get a sense of just how important this is, you don't have to look any further than this. The Prime Minister himself calls the MSME sector the backbone of India's growth. Now, when you hear words like backbone and transformative role, from the very top, that's a massive signal. For you, that's a huge clue that this is a priority area and very likely a source for exam questions. So, what does being the backbone actually look like in terms of numbers? Well, for starters, MSMEs contribute a huge 30.1% to India's gross domestic product. Just think about that for a second. That is nearly a third of the entire country's economic output, all coming from this one sector. And if we zoom in on just the manufacturing sector, their role becomes even clearer. They're responsible for 35.4% of the nation's total manufacturing output. This is one of those key stats you'll definitely want to have in your notes. But their influence doesn't stop at our borders. Their impact is truly global. Rural MSMEs are responsible for a staggering 45 to 47% of India's entire export earnings. So we're not just talking about local businesses here. These are vital engines for bringing foreign currency into the country. They are major players on the world stage. So we've established they're a pretty big deal, right? But for any exam, the first step is always getting the basics right. We need to be precise. So let's nail down the official definition of an MSME, because understanding this classification is absolutely fundamental. Okay, so at its heart, an MSME, which, as you know, stands for micro, small, and medium-sized enterprise, is classified based on what's called a composite criteria. It's not just one thing. It's a combination of two key metrics. First, how much is invested in plant and machinery, and second, what's the company's annual turnover. And this right here is the official breakdown. Seriously, if you're an aspirant, you might want to take a screenshot of this. These are the revised limits that are effective from April 1st, 2025. So for a micro enterprise, the investment is up to 2.5 crore with a turnover up to 10 crore. For small, that jumps to 25 crore in investment and 100 crore in turnover. And for medium, it's up to 125 crore investment and a 500 crore turnover. You absolutely have to memorize this table. Yeah, let's bring the focus back to the rural part of rural MSMEs. A whopping 54.2% of India's unincorporated enterprises, and that's basically businesses not formally registered as being companies, are located in rural areas. Just that one statistic tells you everything you need to know about why this topic is so critical for understanding India's grassroots economy. But, being so widespread in rural India comes with its own unique set of problems. To really understand this subject for your exams, we have to look at the major hurdles these businesses are up against every single day. And the number one roadblock, the issue that pops up in literally every single report you'll read on this, is limited access to finance. Getting enough credit, getting it on time, and getting it at a decent interest rate, that's the single biggest challenge. And this isn't just some vague issue. The data shows some really specific problems. For instance, there's a pretty big credit gap based on gender. It's 32% for businesses run by women, compared to just 20% for those run by men. A lot of these entrepreneurs don't have collateral or formal credit history, which forces them to go to informal lenders who charge sky-high interest rates. And even when they do manage to get a loan, it's often not enough, or the money has to be used for daily household needs instead of growing the business. Okay, so beyond money, there are two other massive issues that are really two sides of the same coin. These are the gaps in modern technology and just a basic lack of infrastructure. Both of these put a serious brake on growth and productivity. I mean, think about it from their perspective. Many of these entrepreneurs might not even know about game-changing tools like e-commerce platforms or digital ways to manage their stock. And even for those who do, what good is it if the internet connection is terrible and a smartphone is too expensive? Then you add in things we take for granted like unreliable electricity, bad roads, or no cold storage for products. You can see how their ability to grow and reach bigger markets gets completely choked off. All right, so we've laid out the problems pretty clearly. Now let's pivot and talk about the solutions. The government, along with key institutions like NABARD, has actually put together a pretty comprehensive support system to tackle these exact challenges head-on.
So, to fix that big finance problem, the government has some direct support schemes. And here's a big one you need to know for your exams, a key jargon alert, CGTSE. That's the Credit Guarantee Scheme for micro and small enterprises. Its whole point is to make collateral-free loans possible, which, as we just saw, is one of the biggest roadblocks out there. Here's another really smart strategy, the cluster-based approach. The government's MSE CDP program, that's the Micro and Small Enterprises Cluster Development Program, works by grouping similar businesses together. It helps them by building things like common facility centers and shared infrastructure. It's a great way to create economies of scale and make them all more competitive together. The government also steps in to help MSMEs actually sell their products. You've got the MSME Champion Scheme, which is a big initiative, but another really powerful tool is the public procurement policy. This policy basically says that 25% of everything that central government departments buy must come from micro and small enterprises. That creates a massive guaranteed market for them. It's a real game changer. Now, to make all of this easier to access, there's a whole digital ecosystem, and these are the key portals you've got to know. First, Udyam, which is for super easy paperless registration. Then there's Udyam Assist, which helps bring those informal, unregistered businesses into the formal system. You've got Samadhan, a platform where businesses can report when they don't get paid on time, a huge issue. And finally, Champions, which acts as a single place for all kinds of support and to file grievances. For your exams, if you remember one, make it Udyam. Okay, now let's zoom in on one specific, really crucial institution in this whole ecosystem, NABARD. That's the National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. And when it comes to the rural economy, its role is absolutely pivotal. So what does NABARD actually do? Well, its approach has many layers. On the financial side, it provides refinance to banks and, very importantly, supports FPOs. That's another key jargon. It stands for Farmer-Producer Organizations. On the developmental side, it helps with skill building and marketing support. And on the strategic side, it champions grassroots movements like SHGs, self-help groups, and helps promote unique regional products through GI, or Geographical Indication Tags. Remember, FPO and SHG, these terms are essential. All right, we have covered a ton of ground. So let's take a moment and boil it all down to the absolute essential takeaways. Think of this as your rapid revision guide, the stuff you absolutely need to remember for exam day. Okay, listen up. This is it. First, the MSME definition. You have to know those new investment and turnover limits. Second, rural dominance. Remember that key number, 54.2%. Third, the key challenges. Just remember the 4 pillars: finance, tech, infrastructure, and market linkages. Fourth, the major schemes. CGTMSE for collateral-free credit is a must-know. Fifth, the portals. Udyam for registration is absolutely crucial. Sixth, NABARD's role. Connect it directly in your mind with its support for FPOs and SHGs. And finally, the big picture context. Know that strengthening MSMEs is a critical piece of the puzzle for achieving the national vision of Viksit Bharat at 2047. So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. We mentioned that over half of India's unincorporated enterprises are rural. Well, that translates to a mind-boggling 7.3 crore individual businesses. The potential there is just immense. So, as India marches towards its 2047 goals, the big question for policymakers and a great one for your essays is this: how can the incredible latent power of these 7.3 crore enterprises be truly and fully unlocked?